Mama, please. Why don't you people want to drop this matter? I know. You're only jealous because you were never as beautiful as I am. If you were, you wouldn't have ended up with a man like Papa. Eh? Maziokinwa's eyes bulged like ripe ugu seeds. A long time ago, in the heart of eastern Nigeria, there was a village called Ukpaka. Ukpaka was a place so alive that even the winds seemed to laugh as they blew through the raffia roofs. It moved with the rhythm of nature. At dawn, the sun rose lazily over the farmlands, painting the sky with streaks of red and gold. The roosters crowed like town criers, announcing the day, and the men, with cutlasses slung across their shoulders, marched off to the farms. The women followed the footpaths to the stream, balancing clay pots on their heads as their laughter rang like bells. And, their gossip was sweeter than palm wine. Married women whispered about the fire in their husband's hut the night before. You know, how well their husbands had performed, while the young maidens giggled about their latest fantasies. The children, barefooted rascals, that chased goats across the compounds, raising dust and noise, as if they were rehearsing for a masquerade festival. By now, I know you would agree with me that life in Ukpaka was simple, but it was also sweet, like a ripe mango plucked straight from the tree. Now, in this village, beauty was admired, yes, but it was hard work that made a maiden truly valuable. A girl's worth was not just in the glow of her skin, but in the strength of her arms, the cleanliness of her father's compound, her kitchen skills, and her character. A hard-working and well-raised maiden was every man's dream, for she was seen as the true crown of a home. So, parents trained their daughters with pride, teaching them to farm, cook, sweep, and serve. Every family longed to raise a maiden who would fit the village's high standard of womanhood. But besties, among all the maidens of Ukpaka, one stood apart like the moon among the stars. Her name was Adamma. To speak of Adamma was to summon 1,000 sighs. Her beauty was not just a thing to see. It was a story carried by the wind itself. Her skin glowed like a freshly peeled palm kernel, smooth and flawless. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, the kind that could scatter a man's thoughts like chaff in the wind. Her smile, that one alone could stop quarrels in the marketplace. And her body, let's just respect ourselves. But the truth must be said. Adamma looked like a carving the gods had perfected and refused to return to the spirit world. Tall as an iroko tree, her waist was as slender as a young palm tree swaying gracefully. Beads hugged her neck and waist, dancing with each step she took, while her anklets jingled like tiny bells announcing her arrival. Wherever Adamma went, the entire village paused. At the stream, even the water seemed to slow down, as though admiring its own reflection in her skin. At the marketplace, traders forgot to call out their wares, their voices trailing off as they followed her with their eyes. Men whispered, shaking their heads in disbelief, while women sighed, some with admiration, others with envy. "This girl is too fine," they would murmur. Surely the gods had spent extra days molding her. How can the gods be so unfair? All this beauty just for one person, others would whisper. During festivals, Adama was paraded like a prize. She would sit beside the king, smiling sweetly, while the villagers clapped and hailed her beauty. Noblemen from neighboring villages often swallowed saliva in admiration, waiting patiently for her to mature into a marriageable maiden. They all knew that it was going to be a tough chase. And Adama, she basked in it. Beauty was her crown, and she wore it like a queen. She never thought of anything that wasn't how beautiful she was and how to keep on being beautiful and charming the entire village, which made her find a very noble profession. Hey, you won't believe it. Every morning, while other maidens hurried to the farms with their fathers or followed their mothers to the markets, Adama sat before her small mirror, a polished brass handed down from her grandmother. There, she spent hours arranging her thick black hair into towering styles, decorating it with cowries and beads. She painted her lips with red camelwood dye, drew charcoal lines around her eyes, and rubbed her skin with palm kernel oil until she gleamed like polished wood. And after all that, she would resume her real duty. And what was Adama's beauty? Parading the entire village like an Ijele masquerade. She walked around proudly, shaking her hips as if she were beating a talking drum with her waist. She enjoyed how the young men dropped their work tools to stare at her, how the elderly men blessed her with compliments, and how other maidens nearly chewed their lips in envy. And once she got to any point where the maidens were gathered, she would give them the real show. Shebi they can see me, Adama would smirk, swinging her buttocks deliberately. Let them have enough gist for the day. Indeed, Adama was a shining star of Opaka, and she knew it. But with all her beauty, Adama had one fatal flaw. She was allergic to work. If laziness were a sickness, then Adama needed very powerful native herbs. She was so indolent that the only skill she mastered in her lifetime was styling her hair into endless artistic shapes and painting her face until she resembled a masquerade on its way to the village square. Aside from that, she couldn't so much as lift a finger to help herself. Adama was not the only daughter of Mazi Okinwa and his wife Chugo. In fact, she was the third of 3 girls, and of course, the most beautiful. Many people whispered that she turned out the way she did because her parents pampered her too much. But no, that accusation was false. Chugo was not a woman who tolerated nonsense. She raised her other daughters with firm discipline. But Adama, the proverb says when a stick is too dry, you cannot bend it without breaking it. That was Adama. No matter how her parents tried, she remained stubbornly unshaped. Okay, if we must point fingers, then the blame should rest squarely on Mamego, Adama's grandmother. That woman spoiled Adama beyond repair. From the very moment the child was born, Mamego took a strange and powerful liking to her. Nothing Adama did could ever be wrong in her eyes. She even gave her a pet name, Mbolomma, meaning seed of beauty. And the name stuck to Adama like oil on palm kernel. Whenever Mamego went to the market, she returned with special gifts meant for Adama alone. Beets, clothes, granuts, eggs, sugarcane, while her other sisters looked on with envy, chewing their lips in quiet jealousy. And when Adama refused to fetch water or wash plates, and her parents dared to scold or punish her, what did she do? She would pick her small bundle of clothes, crying, as she marched off to Mamego's compound like a queen returning to her palace. And what followed? Mamego, quick as fire, once she saw Adama crying, would tie her wrapper firmly, grab her walking stick, and storm into Mazi Okinwa's compound with the fury of a whirlwind. What is this I am hearing? Who beats my Oloma? She would shout, her voice scattering chickens in the yard. Leave her alone, oh. If she doesn't want to fetch water, let the water fetch itself. If she doesn't want to wash plates, let the plate wash itself. Nobody should touch my Oloma again. The entire compound would shake with her warning, and of course, Adama, standing behind her grandmother with an innocent face, would be smiling secretly, her heart dancing in victory. From there, she would return and remain with Mamego, eating sweet delicacies and living like a small queen, until her mother Chugo humbled herself to come and beg Mamego, pleading for her daughter to return home. By the time Mamego finally died, Adama had already blossomed into her teenage years. But alas, the damage had been done. The pampering had sunk too deep. She had become too stubborn, too spoiled, and too set in her ways to bend. By the time Adama turned 15, her mates could cook soup so delicious that it would make a man lick his 10 fingers and still ask for more. But Adama, just tell her to cook, and you are setting yourself up for a heart attack or, at the very least, a chronic kidney disease. Yes, it was that bad. Her cooking was a national disaster. Imagine this: oil floating in one corner of the plate like it was on exile, vegetables hiding miserable in another corner, while salt and Maggi fought bitterly to see which one's taste would overpower the other. And water, the food will be swimming like River Niger had relocated into the pot. The last time Chugo asked her to cook, Adama stood over the pot with tears in her eyes, looking so miserable that even the soup pitied itself. Oya, Adama, since you can't cook, learn handwork like every other maiden in this village, her parents insisted. At first, she declared that since she had passion for hairstyling, she would love to be a hairdresser. But did she last? Haba. She didn't even survive 1 week in her madam's shop before she was disgracefully sent home. Why? Because Adama, instead of plaiting hair, she would spend the whole time crossing her leg in the shop like a queen, painting her fingernails and exchanging quarrels with customers who dared to call her sluggish. The villagers would shake their heads. This world will bring tears to her parents' eyes. Still, after much pleading again, she agreed to tailoring. At least that one should work. But after 4 whole months in the tailoring shop, Adama still didn't even know how to hold a measuring tape properly. Her madam could no longer endure the torment. She packed Adama's load and sent her back home, back to her one true calling, roaming around the village and shaking her waist like a ceremonial gong. At this point, Mazi Okinwa and Chugo were deeply troubled. Of all their children, only Adama was giving them endless sleepless nights. Their eldest daughter had learned how to sew clothes and was already married, living peacefully in her husband's house. The second daughter, Chinwe, made beautiful mats and sold them proudly in the village markets. But Adama, this girl had refused to do anything useful with her life. Despite all the efforts of her parents, she had chosen to disgrace her ancestors with stubborn laziness. Maybe it's because we have not spoken to her calmly, Chugo suggested one night. Maybe she does not even understand what she's doing to herself. And so they agreed. They would call Adama, sit her down, and speak sense into her gently, parents to child. But what happened that night? Nobody could have expected it. That night, The moon hung lazily above Ukpaka, watching silently as Mazi Okenwa, his wife Chugo, and their troublesome daughter sat in front of their hut. The air was heavy with expectation. Chickens had gone to sleep, and even the crickets seemed to hush, as if they too wanted to hear what would happen. Chugo cleared her throat like a village judge about to deliver a final verdict. Adamma, she began slowly. What exactly do you plan to do with your life? We have tried though. We have done everything that a parent should do for their child. What else do you want us to do? You cannot cook. You cannot do chores. You have refused to learn any handwork. My daughter, how will you survive in this tough world? Look at your sisters. But she didn't even finish before Adamma sprang to her feet like a goat startled by fire. Ha, Mama, she exclaimed, raising her hands dramatically. Biko, please, 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 don't use your mouth to wish me bad luck. How will you compare me with my sisters, Sophia? Listen, the gods have big plans for me. She tossed her hair back proudly and started pacing like a lawyer in court. Adanna, my big sister, with all her strong arms and kitchen magic, what did he bring her? Obinna, the village bicycle repairer. A whole Obinna that smells of engine oil. Shh. She burst into a mocking laughter that echoed through the compound. And Chinwe, her husband-to-be, that Chuka Obuaku, that walks like a turkey. Mama, open your eyes and see. Hard work does not pay. Only smart work does. Chugo nearly fainted from shock. But Adamma was only just warming up. Answer me this, Mama. Have you ever seen a princess fetching water, or carrying firewood on her head, or sweating in the kitchen? She paused for a dramatic effect, then answered herself, no. The answer is no. Yet they marry the wealthiest men and live happily ever after. She raised her chin high, her eyes gleaming with pride. That's the life I'm aiming for. I have all it takes. Me, Adamma, of Ukpaka Kingdom. The beauty that turns heads. The flower that makes men forget their wives. Don't worry about me, Mama. The gods will shock the both of you on my behalf. Chugo and her husband were dumbstruck. They sat, staring at their daughter as if she had sprouted 2 horns on her head. Finally, after what felt like forever, Chugo managed to find her voice. My child, she said softly, her tone heavy with sorrow. A bird that refuses to fly will one day roast in the hunter's pot. Do not put all your trust in beauty, for it fades with time. Work gives dignity. Do not allow laziness to destroy you. It's not too late. You can still begin to learn now. But before she could finish, Adamma snapped her fingers and cut her short. Mama, please. Why don't you people want to drop this matter? I know. You're only jealous because you were never as beautiful as I am. If you were, you wouldn't have ended up with a man like Papa. Maziokinwa's eyes bulged like ripe ugu seeds. Adamma ignored him, her voice rising like a village town crier. Look around. I'm not even ripe for marriage yet. Men follow me everywhere. Why should I suffer myself when I could easily get what I want? You people don't understand the realm I am operating from. Men will take care of me. Why should I carry loads on my head when my face alone can open the doors of kings' palaces? Her parents sat frozen, their mouths hanging open like broken clay pots. What could they say again? Their daughter had chosen madness as her philosophy. Finally, they sighed in unison, got up quietly and trudged back into their huts, shoulders heavy with disappointment. I just hope you know what you are doing, Maziokinwa muttered gravely as he disappeared inside. But Adamma wasn't listening anymore. Her mind was already far away, thinking about which clothes she should wear the next morning for her grand village parade. She hissed under her breath. "These people don't even understand," she murmured smugly. "Adamma is operating on another level, and the village will see." And so, Adamma continued in her ways. While other maidens bent their backs under the hot sun, sweating in the field, Adamma glided through the village like a crowned queen. She walked as if the very earth should thank her feet for the honor of stepping on it. Years rolled by, and Adamma blossomed into a maiden more breathtaking that even the trees seemed to lean closer when she passed. She was now of marriageable age, and suddenly the entire village of Ubaka split into two because men began to fight, and I mean fight, over who would win the prize of Adamma's hand. The news of her beauty traveled faster than Harmattan fire. From nearby villages, from across hills and rivers, suitors began to arrive, men in numbers like ants rushing to a pot of honey. And they didn't come empty-handed though, no. Some staggered under the weight of baskets of kola nuts. Others carried jars of palm wine that foamed like the river's edge. Some came with bolts of colorful clothes. Others with shiny beads and jewelry that gleamed in the sun. Their hearts burned with desire. They dreamt of Adamma's smile lighting up their homes, of her laughter filling their courtyards. But alas, they had not met the true Adamma. She treated them as if they carried a curse. She waved them off the way one would scatter flies from ripe mango. Their gifts, she collected them with two hands. A fine girl never rejects free things. But their persons, they were never good enough. "Look at you," she would say, rolling her eyes so hard that you would think they might fall off. "You are too poor for my liking. From the way your chicken eyes are blinking, it looks like you are searching for a maid. That maid is not Adamma. Go and marry those who sweat in the farms, those who can roast in your kitchens. As for me, I was born for soft life. My beauty will fetch me a rich man, a man who will serve me like a queen." The poor suitors would beg and beg again. Some even knelt in the dust till their knees were coated white. But Adamma would hiss and strut away, her anklets jingling in victory. Eventually, they would leave, their hearts wounded, their gifts already swallowed by her baskets. Yet, they did not give up. They returned again and again, determined to prove themselves until the day Adamma's pride might bend. One of the earliest men to seek Adamma's hand was Obinna, a young farmer whose name carried weight in Ubaka. His arms were strong like carved wood, his yam barn always full after harvest, and his laughter, warm enough to melt anyone's sorrow away. The villagers loved him, for he was the kind who would drop his cutlass to help a neighbor without complaints. From childhood, Obinna's eyes had always followed Adamma. He admired her beauty, her poise, and he had long determined in his heart that one day she was going to be his wife. So, one quiet evening, as the crickets sang and the moon climbed lazily into the sky, Obinna gathered his courage. He carried a calabash of fresh palm wine in one hand and a plate of kola nuts in the other. His steps were steady, though his heart thumped like a village festival drum. He bowed low before Mazi Okinwa and Chugu. "I greet you, my elders," he said respectfully. "I have come to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. I know I may not be the richest man in the entire village, but I'm not poor either, and I promise to take care of her, to respect her, and to keep her well fed. His voice was honest, his eyes full of hope. The parents exchanged glances, uncertain, when suddenly Adamma, who had been sitting on a stool, polishing her fingernails with a tiny stick, threw back her head and laughed. Not a gentle laugh, but a thunderous one that rolled across the compound, like the clap of a masquerade's drum. You? She said, her tone sharp enough to cut palm frond. Wait, you, Obinna, the one who spent all the day bending like an old tree under the sun, sweating and smelling of tubers of yam. And you think I'm in the same class as those bush village girls? She snapped her fingers in mockery. To fear, may the gods forbid such insults. So, you want to marry me, eh? So that I will carry cutlass and join you in the farm, abi? Banner. The evil spirit will not use you. She stood up, her waist beats jingling as she placed her hands on her hip. Obinna, go and marry those bush girls who love to dig in the soil and roast in the kitchen. As for me, I am destined for greater things. My husband will be a man of great wealth, a man who wears silken robes and gold bracelets, not a farmer covered in dust like an overripe yam. The words struck Obinna like stones. His ears burned. His chest tightened with shame. He turned to Adamma's parents, hoping they would rebuke her. But alas, they only sighed and bowed their heads, powerless against their daughter's tongue. With quiet dignity, Obinna knelt, placed the kola nut gently on the floor, and spoke softly. Adamma, you are beautiful, and beauty is good, but pride destroys. Remember my words. Then, carrying his calabash of palm wine, he turned and walked into the night, his tall shadow stretching long and lonely across the compound. Not long after Obinna's humiliation, another suitor came. Ikenna, the village merchant. Unlike Obinna, Ikenna was not known for sweating in the farm. No. His pride was his booming voice in the market square, where he sold everything from dried fish to slippers. He wasn't also the richest in the land, but at least his pockets jingled with cowries, and his house never lacked food. Ikenna believed he had what it took to win Adamma's heart. He shaved his head clean, oiled his body till it shone like palm kernel, and dressed in his finest clothes. Then, he carried 2 big baskets of dried fish, a jug of palm wine, and a string of cowries. He walked proudly to Mazi Okenwa's compound, his chest puffed out like a cock, ready for battle. My elder, I greet you, he boomed. I have come to seek the hand of your daughter Adamma. I have enough to take care of her. She will never lack wrapper to tie or beads to wear. The parents, tired of disappointment, simply nodded. But Adamma, her eyes rolled before the man even finished speaking. She stood up, dusted her wrapper, and burst into laughter. Even Ikenna, the trader, she said, clapping her hands, like someone watching a masquerade fall into a gutter. So, you want to marry me, eh? You, a man whose body smells of dried fish morning, afternoon, night. The entire compound went silent. Do you think I want to marry and start roasting in fish smoke every day? By the time I finish living with you, even the gods won't recognize me again. My beauty will smell of crayfish. Abomination. It's not fair now. Ikenna's face turned red, but Adamma was not done. She pointed at his legs and sneered. Look at your big stomach and bow legs. Is this the kind of man that will carry me to the palace? Here, Ikenna, go and find yourself a wife who doesn't mind sneezing fish scales. As for me, Adamma of Okpaka, my destiny is to live in wealth, not in smoke. Ikenna opened his mouth to defend himself, but only air came out. The insult was too much. Quietly, he dropped his gifts on the ground and shook his head. Adamma, he muttered. I really love you. I really love you. But you see this your pride. It won't take you anywhere. With that, he turned and left, his baskets of fish forgotten. The chickens in the compound quickly rushed to scatter his dried fish, and Adamma only laughed harder, twisting her waist as if celebrating his downfall. As for her parents, they simply sat with their hands on their head, their disappointment heavier than yam harvest. And so it continued. Adamma, with her sharp tongue and swollen pride, kept turning down and insulting the countless suitors who flooded Mazi Okenwa's compound. But these men, they were stubborn, determined to marry the most beautiful maiden in Ukpaka. They kept on coming like flies around palm wine. And with each suitor came more gifts. Soon, Mazi Okenwa's house looked less like a family home and more like a market stall after harvest. Tubers of yams piled here, bags of rice stacked like ant hills, jars of palm oil, bolts of clothes. The compound was overflowing. Meanwhile, Adamma, the same maiden who could not lift a broom or fetch a cup of water for herself, was living like a queen, dressed in the costly attires her suitors brought, with expensive beads hanging from her neck, and her face painted beautifully, of course. She still paraded the village as though she were the princess of Ukpaka itself. Her beauty was so radiant, so captivating, that people often stopped to ask, Adamma, what do you do for a living that makes you look so beautiful and rich? And without a blink, she would smile sweetly and declare, I am beautiful for a living. She would toss her head proudly, adding, isn't it wonderful to be beautiful? Men will crawl on their knees and give you everything you want. So, why should I stress myself to do any work? Life is meant to be soft. Some villagers would shake their heads in pity, muttering, Chai, this girl's end will not be good. But others, especially a few foolish maidens, saw Adamma as a shining example of wisdom, a role model to success. To them, she wasn't just a girl, she was a celebrity, and who didn't want to be friends with a celebrity? They followed her, parading behind her like loyal subjects trailing their queen. Adamma enjoyed the attention, of course. She didn't mind as long as they stayed in their place, behind her, not beside her. And in return, she sprinkled little favors their way. A bead here, a wrapper there, maybe even a blouse from the pile of gifts her rejected suitors had left behind. To know Adamma was, in their eyes, to know wealth. And thus, the proud maiden of Ukpaka reigned like royalty, not crowned by the king, but by her beauty and by the foolishness of those who worshipped it. By now, Adamma's age mates were already married. Some already had one or two children. But it didn't bother Adamma. Mbana, not even a little. She strutted through life without a care, while her parents grew sick with worry, wringing their hands at night like helpless mourners. Meanwhile, Adamma had also added a new skill set to her already existing profession. Yes, she had become the village's self-acclaimed professor. Every evening, as the stars blinked above Ukpaka, Adamma gathered her loyal students under the shade of the great Udara tree. There, she transformed into the champion of the night, delivering lectures that shook the village square. She called it 101 Nuggets of Wisdom every maiden should know. Adamma would sit like a queen, snapping her fingers, while her students leaned close, their eyes wide. Then, with a mischievous smile, she would begin, You see, girls, men are like palm trees. They stand tall and proud, but with the right pressure, they drop their fruits into your lap. I collect their gifts, their treasures, their best offerings, and then I reject them without mercy. She would laugh until tears filled her eyes as she narrated tales of desperate suitors, men willing to crawl in the dust just for her smile. Ah, you should see their faces when I finally turned them down. Pitiful, like goats waiting to be slaughtered. They look as if they want to cry. The maidens would burst into wild laughter, rolling on the ground, clapping like festival drummers. Then Adamma, full of herself, would raise her chin. You see, I have all of them at my fingertips. They do whatever I wish. Yet, I won't settle for less. None of them is worthy enough for me. All a woman needs is beauty. Be beautiful, and you will never suffer a day in your life. Forget broke, sweaty farmers. They will roast you like granite under the sun. Dream big, girls. Dream big. Her words fell like fire on dry grass. When she spoke of other maidens who had already married poor men, she wrinkled her nose in disgust. Those ones have signed up for everlasting poverty. Ew! It can never be me. The man who will marry me will shake the entire kingdom when he arrives. At this, her students jumped in excitement, clapping and dancing around her like worshippers around an oracle. They hailed her, praised her wisdom, chanting her name. But the real disaster was brewing silently. These girls were not just listening to Adamma, they were learning. Adamma, without knowing it, had become their mentor, raising a whole generation of lazy maidens allergic to work, dreaming only of marrying a rich man. And whenever their parents tried to scold them, these foolish girls had only one defense. Mama, Papa, look at Adamma now. Adamma Okinwa's daughter. No maiden in this village is fresher than her. Yet suitors keep trooping to her father's compound. What work does she know how to do? Nothing. What skills does she have? None. Yet men are willing to die on her matter. Which nobleman hasn't asked for a hand? She's a proof that beauty alone is enough. Men will give you anything if your face is fine. Their parents would sigh and ask, but why has she not married? Are her mates not getting married already? And the maidens would reply proudly, because she hasn't seen her spec yet. Those men are too poor for her standard. A woman with her kind of beauty deserves only a wealthy king or chief, nothing less. Indeed, Adamma had raised a fan base so loyal that they could rival a king's council, and she herself stood at the center, glowing like a touch of pride and foolishness. At first, the villagers laughed it off. They thought Adamma's nuggets of wisdom were nothing but childish mischief. But as the days turned into weeks, their laughter died. They began to see the fire spreading fast. Adamma's reckless teachings were catching like dry grass in Harmattan. Parents were losing their daughters to Adamma's madness. No matter how much they warned them, the girls had Adamma's so-called testimonies as proof. Look at her, they argued. She does nothing, yet suitors come trooping to her father's compound. It was getting out of hand. So one evening, the elders summoned Mazi Okinwa to the village square. The men sat in circle, their walking stick beating the ground in anger. Okinwa, one elder began, his voice sharp. You must call your daughter to order. She is destroying the maidens of Okpaka, laying bad seeds. Another added, we don't care if this is the life she has chosen for herself. Being lazy, arrogant, wasting her beauty, that's her business. But she must leave our daughters out of it. A third elder shook his head bitterly. She's not the only beautiful girl on earth though. If you failed to raise her well, that's your shame. But we worked hard to raise our own daughters. We will not sit back and watch her spoil them for us. The men murmured in agreement. Look at her, she's not even married. And now she wants our girls to become old maids, waiting endlessly for rich husbands who may never come. Okinwa, enough is enough. Their words pierced like arrows. Okinwa's face burned with shame. He couldn't even raise his head. To be rebuked by the elders in front of the entire council was humiliation beyond measure. He stomped back home, his walking stick striking the ground like thunder. "Adamma," he roared, his voice carried across the compound. "Adamma, you child of disgrace, where are you? You will not continue to embarrass me in this kingdom." Adamma appeared lazily from the hut, her hands on the waist, her anklets jingling as though mocking his anger. "You have to stop this nonsense. Whatever teaching you are doing with the maidens of this village under the Udara tree, it has to stop," Okenwa thundered. "Do you know how the elders insulted me today because of your stupidity? They said you are ruining the maidens of this village with your madness. Listen, you can do whatever you want with your life, but I will not allow you drag my name in the mud any longer. You must end this. Do you hear me? I said end it." But Adamma only shifted her waist proudly. "Papa, I did not force any of them into my class. I did not even beg any of them to come. Oh. No, if they are greedy, is it my fault? They all want what they cannot afford. They want to be like me. I am only showing them the way." At her words, Okenwa burst into bitter laughter. A blind man showing the way indeed. This will be the first. Do you not see the shame you are dragging on yourself? I feel sorry for you, Adamma. Look at you now, proud and foolish. Very soon you will get old, and maybe then, when no man looks your way, you will finally learn. Beauty fades. Only good virtues keep a woman's home. His voice cracked with pain as he turned sharply and walked away, leaving Adamma standing there, hands fixed on her waist, her pride blinding her to the storm gathering on the horizon. However, Adamma, completely blind, refused to heed to every warning. To her, the scolding of her father, the whispers of the elders, were not shame, but proof that her beauty was a weapon sharp and powerful. She still gathered her loyal subjects under the great Udala tree, swaying her waist like a queen, while the moonlight turned her into a glowing statue of pride. "Do you people know," she boasted one evening, her laughter ringing like metal, "that yesterday a man brought me 2 fat goats? 2! I smiled at him sweetly and he nearly collapsed. Then I told him to bring a 3rd goat before I would even consider listening to him. Guess what? He agreed." The friends gasped, clapping their hands against their mouths. Some looked at her with awe, others with envy burning in their eyes. One maiden, timid and thoughtful, whispered, "Adamma, are you not afraid? Won't the gods punish you for playing with men's heart like this?" Adamma rolled her eyes so hard that they almost disappeared into her head. "Punish me? For what? For being beautiful, my dear. The gods themselves must be very proud of their masterpiece. Look at me. Have you seen another maiden as perfect as this in Obaka? Men were created to serve beauty. If they want to shower me with gifts, who am I to refuse?" She tossed her hair, and the beads clattered like cowries in a calabash. But not everyone was laughing. At the stream, while maidens bent to fill their water pots, the air grew heavy with gossip. "Is Adamma not ashamed?" one asked, her lips coiling in disgust. "She has no husband, yet she eats like a queen in her father's house." Another shook her head. "She thinks her beauty will last forever. Let's wait and see what happens when her mirror no longer smiles back at her." Their laughter was sharp, tinged with bitterness, yet their eyes still betrayed jealousy. For Adamma's charm, no matter how dangerous, was like honey, sweet but sticky. Still, the suitors kept coming. They came like moths chasing fire, even though the flame would surely burn them. At moonlight dances, Adamma arrived in bright, expensive wrappers that shimmered in the firelight. Her arms jingled with bangles, her waist beads clinked in rhythm as she swayed proudly. The moment she stepped onto the dance ground, the drummer's hands moved faster, the flute sang louder, and every single eye followed her. To Adamma, life was simple. Beauty brought wealth. Wealth brought comfort. Why should she lower herself to toil like every other person? Why should she bend her back in the farms or sweat in smoky kitchens? She was Adamma, the jewel of Ukpaka, the girl too beautiful to work. The moon had not yet risen, but already the village square throbbed with excitement. It was the season of the New Yam Festival, a time when the people of Ukpaka poured their hearts in thanksgiving to the gods. From every compound, the smell of roasted yam, palm oil and pepper soup drifted into the air. Children ran about with chalk-painted faces. Masquerades twirled in bright colors, their raffia skirts switching, rattles jingling like rainfall on zinc. Drummers tightened their drums. Flutists filled the night with piercing notes that carried far beyond the hills. But for the maidens, the festival was more than a celebration. It was the night of the beauty parade. Here, girls of marriageable age displayed their finest wrappers and beads. Their heads bowed shyly as the whole village admired them, and wealthy men from neighboring kingdoms came in their horses in large numbers to search for a beautiful bride. This was another season for Adamma to shine and to probably snatch a wealthy man. And of course, trust Adamma. She prepared like no other. From morning till evening, she sat before her mirror. Her friends plaited her hair into a towering crown. Strings of coral beads dripped down her neck. Cowries hugged her waist, and fine wrappers clung to her slim waist and rounded hips. Her skin gleamed like polished bronze, oiled until it shone in the setting sun. When she finally stepped out of her father's hut, the villagers gasped. Even the masquerades froze mid-dance. Whispers spread like Hamatan fire. Look at her. Adamma has never looked this beautiful before. Hey! The gods must have carved her with their own special hands. This girl is extraordinarily fine. No maiden in this entire kingdom can compete. Her parents followed behind, their eyes full of pride mixed with worry. At the square, the maidens lined up in their sparkling wrappers. For the moment Adamma took her place, the others seemed to fade into shadows. The drummer struck harder, as if for her alone. The flutist blew higher notes, chasing her smile. And when she began to dance, her waist swayed like a serpent, her feet tapped the earth lightly, her arms spread like a bird in graceful flight. The crowd roared, stamping and clapping, completely lost in her charm. It was as if Adamma truly came prepared. In the crowd that night stood Okafor, the famous palm oil merchant from a neighboring kingdom. He was a man of immense wealth. His barns overflowed with yams. His land stretched wide, his horses sleek and strong, and his bags of cowries could fill a riverbank. He had traveled far and wide, but never in all his journeys had he seen a maiden as beautiful as Adamma. His eyes blazed with desire, and without hesitation, he stepped forward. Great men and women of Ukpaka, Okafor declared boldly, I, Okafor, son of Ezeoku, have seen the jewel of your village. I desire Adamma for my wife. I will build her a house with many rooms, clothe her in wrappers from the city, feed her with the choicest food, and treat her like a queen. Only speak the word, and I will pay any price you demand. The square fell into stunned silence. All eyes turned to Adamma. Here, finally, was a very kind of man she had been waiting for. Wealthy, proud, and ready to worship her beauty. Adamma adjusted her beads, smiled sweetly, and then asked in a voice loud enough to shake the square, Okafor, tell me before these people, how many lands do you own? How many cattle? How many horses? How much gold lies in your barn? The merchant smiled confidently and listed them all. His wealth, greater than anyone imagined. The crowd gasped. Even the elders exchanged astonished looks. And then came the shock of the night. Adama clapped her hands in delight and declared, "Then it is settled. Okafor, I will accept your proposal. From today, I am yours." The villagers screamed in disbelief. Children jumped. Women covered their mouths. Men shook their heads. Even our parents stared at each other wide-eyed, whispering, "So, after everything, she truly found her match." The maidens, her loyal students, danced and screamed in joy. Did we not see it? Did we not see it? Hey, Adama has shown everyone today that beauty is enough. Okafor didn't waste time. Few weeks later, his marriage to Adama took place. Their marriage ceremony became the biggest and loudest Ubaka had ever seen. Goats bleated, drums thundered, flutes screamed, palm wine flowed like river water. Guests ate until they could barely stand, and masquerades danced till their raffia skirts unraveled. The villagers were left in awe. Some shook their heads in wonder, others in envy. But one thing was certain. Adama had shocked them all. Against all odds, she had landed her dream. Wealth, status, and a husband who promised to serve her like a queen. And as students, they were over the moon. To them, this was a proof that Adama's teachings worked. Our parents owe her an apology, they chattered excitedly at the stream. She has shown us all that beauty is enough. Adama has won. Okafor was a wealthy man, yes, but he was also a man of deep tradition. To him, a woman's worth was never just in her beauty. Beauty could charm the eyes, but virtue, hard work, and good character were what made a wife. When he saw Adama glittering like sunlight on water, he thought, surely, besides her beauty, she must be a woman of substance. He had been ready to spoil her silly, to drape her in silk, and to make her life as soft as palm oil on yam. If only she proved herself to be a good wife. But after the wedding celebrations ended, Adama followed Okafor to Umude, his hometown. News of her beauty had traveled there like a rushing river. When she arrived, the people welcomed her in a grand style, hailing her like a true queen. Adama's heart swelled. She felt like the happiest girl in the world, like one who had just won a golden medal. And why not? Okafor's mansion was breathtaking. It was no thatched roof, like the huts she was used to back in Obaka. This house was wide and decorated, with walls plastered smooth and mats woven in fine patterns. Adama looked around and whispered to herself, "This is the life I was born for." But the true marriage began the very next day. Adama Okafor called, smiling warmly, "Prepare me some nsala soup." Adama froze. "You mean I should cook? But I thought you were wealthy. Don't you have maids?" Okafor chuckled. "Maids? When I have a wife. I don't keep maids in my home. I have servants for the farm, yes, but this house is yours to keep. My wife must rule her kitchen." And right there, besties, was where the problem began. Adama stepped into the kitchen like a stranger entering a shrine. She stood, hands on her waist, staring at the tuber of yam on the table. Nsala, yes, she had seen her mother cook it countless times, but she had never paid attention, never. "Hey," she muttered in panic. "My village people are after my life. What should I do now? Should I fry the yam or roast it first?" Tears stung in her eyes as she circled the table, staring at the innocent tuber as though it mocked her. Meanwhile, Okafor sat in the dining room, washing his hand with a satisfied smile, already imagining the steaming plate of soup his beautiful bride would set before him. After what felt like forever, Adamma stumbled out of the kitchen, balancing a tray like a confused groundnut seller at the market. She set it on the table, her face shiny with nervous sweat. Okafor rubbed his palms together in excitement and opened the plate. The next thing the villagers heard was a scream. "What is this? What is this?" Okafor's voice thundered. Adamma, blinking innocently, replied, "Nsala soup." "Alo! Abomination!" Okafor staggered back as though the plate contained poison. The yams floated in lumps. The pepper and palm oil fought like enemies refusing to mix. And the smell, it was enough to chase a rat out of his hole. Let us not even talk about the taste, because no living man in his right senses would put that concoction into his mouth. Fury burned in Okafor's chest. He stormed out of the house, shaking his head in disbelief. So this was it. The beautiful wife he had spent so much wealth to marry. The one whose beauty had been praised from one kingdom to another. She didn't even know how to cook. After the disaster of the Nsala soup, Okafor tried to calm down. Maybe it was only the nerves of a new bride, he thought. She will adjust. She will learn. But as the days rolled into weeks, his hopes withered like yam leaves in dry season. Okafor began to notice the truth. Adamma knew absolutely nothing. Not how to cook, not how to sweep, not how to wash her clothes, not even how to fetch water properly. The compound grew dirty, weeds creeping around the corners. Inside the house, clothes piled like heels. The mats smelled of sweat, and dust covered the tables. Meanwhile, what did Adamma do? Her daily routine was laughable. She would sleep until the sun was high, yawn and stretch like a lazy cat, then sit before her mirror from morning till night. She painted her face, oiled her skin until it shone, and admired her reflection, smiling at herself like she was her own suitor. Okafor would return from his farms tired and dusty, only to find no food, no water drawn, no clean space to even rest. His heart grew heavier each day. He had dreamt of a wife to crown his wealth, but instead he had married a living doll, beautiful to look at, but useless in every other way. Sometimes he would watch her with frustration burning in his chest and mutter, "What is beauty, just wasted." It didn't take long before the people of Umudi began to talk. In the village square, by the stream, at the farms, the whispers spread like wildfire. "Have you seen Okafor's wife?" The women asked each other, fine like the morning sun, but lazy as a sleeping dog. "I heard she cannot even cook. Go to her compound, very dirty. She can't even wash ordinary clothes." Another added with a chuckle, "Her compounds now look like bush, my sister. Flies are now her closest friends." The men, too, shook their heads. Okafor thought he married a queen, but he has only brought home trouble. Beauty without sense is a curse. Children even made songs at the stream. Adamma fine, Adamma sweet, Adamma no sabi to cook meat. Everywhere Okafor went, eyes followed him. Not with respect anymore, but with pity. For what use was a wealthy man with a wife who could not even keep her home? Okafor's disappointment ran deep. He, a man of tradition and discipline, had believed in Adamma's outward glow, but each day, her emptiness cut him deeper. When he returned home, he no longer smiled. When he looked at her painted face, he no longer admired, he only sighed. His heart ached with regret. His wealth mocked him. For what was the use of cattle, land, and gold, if the woman of his house was nothing but a shadow in coral beads? Adamma, oblivious, could sway her waist, admire her anklets, and whisper to herself in the mirror, "Hi, Adamma, the jewel of Obaka, the queen of Umudi." But outside, the whole village already knew the truth. She was beautiful, but beautiful and useless. It happened one afternoon. Okafor returned from his farm, his body drenched in sweat, his stomach rumbling for food. Surely, he thought, his wife must have prepared something by now. But as he entered the compound, what did he see? Adamma, his jewel, sitting under the shade of a tree, with her face painted red like camwood masquerade. Her anklets jingling as she admired herself in a small mirror. The goats were bleating hungrily, the house was a mess, and smoke from an abandoned pot rose lazily from the kitchen. Adamma, Okafor thundered. What are you doing? Where is my food? She waved her hand carelessly, still staring at her reflection. Food? I was about to start. Don't shout at me. I don't like noise. That was it. Something snapped inside Okafor. He grabbed the mirror from her hand and smashed it against the wall. Enough! Enough of this foolishness, you rat. His palm landed on her cheek with a sharp crack that echoed in the compound. From that day, Okafor's heart turned to stone towards her. The smallest mistake, water not fetched, clothes left dirty, house left untidy, brought down blows and slaps on Adamma. The beauty queen of Ubaka, once praised by drums and flutes, was now receiving beatings in her husband's house. And then one evening, Okafor returned home with another woman. Her name was Obiageli. She was no great beauty, not compared to Adamma's dazzling glow. But her hands were skillful, her spirit humble, and her smile full of warmth. Obiageli would sweep the house until it shone. She cooked soups so rich that the aroma carried across the village. She washed and pressed Okafor's wrappers, fetched water before dawn, and tended to him with devotion. Adamma's heart burned like fire. Unable to bear it any longer, one evening, she shouted with rage, Okafor, how dare you bring another woman into my house when I'm still here? Do you not see me? Okafor's answer was a heavy slap that sent her sprawling. Shut your mouth, he barked. Do not ever question me again. You have brought nothing but embarrassment and pain into my life. Obiageli gives me peace. If you are not okay with it, then pack your load and go back to your father's house. Hey, besties. Adamma's golden dreams began to crumble before her eyes. Every day, she watched the way Okafor adored Obiageli, the way he ate her food with satisfaction, laughed at her jokes, and praised her before visitors. Obiageli wasn't even more beautiful than Adamma, but still, she was the apple of his eyes, while Adamma became like a shadow in the corner. The once proud jewel of Ubaka was now treated like an outcast in her husband's mansion. Unable to bear the shame, one day, Adamma gathered her wrappers, her beads, her pride, and left Okafor's house. She returned to her father's compound, her head held high, convincing herself that all was not lost. After all, she thought, I still have my beauty. Men will still come crawling at my feet. But, besties, should we tell her? Time, they say, is the one thing no man or maiden can defeat. It moves quietly like a shadow, changing everything in its path. When Adamma returned to Ubaka, only her students were shocked. Every other person had seen it coming. The only surprise was that she had even lasted 7 whole months in her husband's house. That in itself was a testimony. Tongues wagged. Adamma became the hottest gist in the village. I heard her husband drove her away and married another woman. And I even heard the new wife isn't as beautiful as Adamma. So, what it means is that beauty does not keep a man. Everywhere she went, people stared, shaking their heads. Even her once loyal students began to avoid her like leprosy. No one wanted to be associated with failure. Adama, full of pride, thought men would still trip and crawl before her. But not even a dry lizard with a big coat crossed her heart. The world had moved on. Life no longer revolved around her beauty. The seasons came and went. The rains fell, the yams sprouted. The harvests were gathered, and Harmattan returned with its dry wind. Each season left its mark not only on the land, but also on Adama. At first, the change was small, almost invincible. A faint line at the corner of her eye when she laughed, a dullness in her skin that no amount of palm oil could fully restore. Her waist, once slender as a young palm tree, began to thicken slightly. She was still beautiful, yes, but her glow no longer blinded the eyes the way it once had. Meanwhile, her mates, the very girls she had mocked for sweating in the farms, were all living peacefully in their husband's house, including her very own sisters. Their compound were now filled with the laughter of children, their hands busy with work, their backs strong from tilling the soil. When they passed Adama at the stream, they carried themselves with quiet dignity. They had husbands to return to, children to bath, and farms to manage. Adama had only her mirror. Then, one day, a new maiden arrived in the village. Her name was Ngozi. She was younger, fresher, and as radiant as the morning sun. Ngozi's skin was smooth like clay, freshly molded by the potter's hands. Her laughter tinkled like bells. She was not only beautiful, but hardworking. She fetched firewood, tilled the soil, and still managed to smile at everyone she met. It did not take long for the eyes of the men to shift. Where once Adama had been shining, now Ngozi was the new sun in the sky. Men followed her to the stream, offering to carry her water pots. At the market, traders gave her discounts, eager to please her. Even at moonlight dances, the drummers struck their drums harder when Ngozi swayed her waist. Adama noticed. One afternoon, as she walked through the market in her finest wrapper, she heard two women whispering. Once upon a time, all eyes were on Adama. Now look, the men can't stop staring at Ngozi. The other side, beauty is like a flower. Once it blooms, it must wither. Adama's time has passed. At the stream, young maidens giggled behind their hand as she approached. Old Kagu, one of them whispered, "Who will buy her now?" The laughter stung at turns. Adama's heart burned with shame. But she held her head high, pretending not to hear. Yet, when she returned home, she sat before her mirror. She saw what others saw. Her face no longer glowed like before. Her beauty had begun to dim. For the first time, fear crept into her heart. It was clear that her season had passed. No man dared to come to ask for her hand in marriage. No more baskets of yam, no more calabashes of palm oil, no more jewelry to adorn her neck. It was as if the village had suddenly agreed that Adama no longer existed. The first time it truly sank into her heart was one hot afternoon. Her stomach rumbled with hunger, but there was nothing to eat. Her father had grown weak with age, and her mother could only manage small tasks around the compound. Her sisters were tired of her constant begging. For the first time in years, Adama's mirror felt like an enemy. Her reflection mocked her. Still beautiful, but no longer extraordinary. No longer enough to feed her. That evening, after pacing for hours, she did something she once swore she would never do. She wrapped her fading beauty in a once bright but now dull wrapper and went to find Obinna. Obinna, the same young farmer who had once stood outside her compound with a basket of ripe mangoes every week, praying she would accept his heart. The man whose love had been so steady, so patient, but the villagers said it was stronger than the roots of an iroko tree. The man she had mocked and dismissed, calling him a poor farmer with yam-stained fingers. She found him outside his compound, splitting firewood. His chest glistened with sweat, and beside him, a young boy ran in circles, laughing. Obina's wife, a woman who had once been mocked for her plain looks, came out carrying a baby on her back. Obinna, Adamma called softly. The axe froze mid-air. Obinna turned. For a moment, his eyes flickered with recognition, then hardened. Ah, Adamma, to what do I owe this visit? Adamma's pride clawed at her throat, but hunger pushed her words out. Obinna, do you remember the love you once had for me? You came with gifts, with baskets, with songs. See, I was blind then, but now I can see clearly. I have changed. If you will still have me, I am ready to marry you. There was silence. Then Obinna laughed, not out of joy, but the kind of bitter laugh that comes from wounds too old to bleed. He wiped sweat from his brow. Adamma, I thought you were married. Oh, I forgot he chased you back home. Yes. You see, when I was a boy, I begged for your heart. You played with it like a child plays with snail shells. And when you were done, you threw it away. I have healed. I have a wife. I have children. My heart is no longer empty, waiting for you to fill. Adamma's face burned as his wife looked at her with quiet pity. The little boy clung to his father's leg, staring curiously at the strange woman in front of them. Humiliated, she turned away. But pride refused to die so easily. Chike will take me, she whispered to herself as she walked into the night. Chike the hunter with broad shoulders and a voice like thunder, the man who once carved her name into the back of a tree and swore she was the only woman who lived in his heart. He had once offered her his heart, his game, even his bow. She had laughed in his face, saying, I deserve a man with gold, not one who smells of bushmeat. Now, she found him at the edge of the village, smoking fresh antelope meat. His compound was lively, children chasing one another, goats bleating, and his wife pounding yam with strong, steady hands. Chike, Adamma said, forcing a smile. I have come to you. Chike turned, his eyes widening in surprise. Adamma. Yes, she said quickly. Remember, you once said you loved me more than life itself. You said you would give me the world if I only said yes. Well, today I have come to give you that yes. I will be your wife. I will give you children. I will stop. The word cut sharper than its peer. Chike's face was no longer filled with longing. His eyes were steady, almost cold. Adamma, I begged you once. I offered you my heart and you broke it into pieces and humiliated me. Do you think I am the same foolish man? Still waiting where you left me. Look around you, I have a family now. My love for you died long ago. Adamma's lips trembled, but you said I was the only one. I was stupid. And thank the gods I didn't end up with you. Chike said simply, turning away. Now I am a man, and a man does not chase shadows. I can't eat a leftover meal. The smell of roasted meat filled the air, but to Adamma, it was the stench of her failure. She stumbled away, her eyes filled with the sound of children's laughter, not hers, but the children of the men who had once loved her. Tears burned her eyes. For the first time in her life, Adamma tasted the full bitterness of rejection. After her humiliating visits to Obinna and Chike, Adamma returned home with heavy hearts. Her mother, now frail and coughing often, looked at her with sorrowful eyes. Her father sat silently by the fire, his face wrinkled like old leather. There was no food in the hut that night. Adamma lay awake, her belly gnawing with hunger, her mind chasing memories she wished she could erase. Memories of laughter at moonlight dances, of suitors queuing with baskets of gifts, of her mocking voice declaring, "Work? I am beautiful, that is my job." But beauty could not cook yam, beauty could not pound fufu, beauty could not silence a hungry stomach. By morning, she had made her decision. "I will go to the farm," she told her parents. Her mother blinked in surprise. "The farm? Mom, do you even know how to hold a hoe?" Adama forced a smile, though her heart trembled. "I will learn. Hunger is a better teacher than pride." So she wrapped her faded wrapper tightly around her waist and followed the group of women into the fields. The sun beat down mercilessly. The women bent over, their hoes striking the ground with rhythmic precision. Their laughter and chatter rose above the rustling leaves as they walked. Adama gripped the handle of the hoe and struck the earth. Thud. Pain shot up her arms. The hoe slipped from her soft hands, leaving a fresh blister across her palm. She winced, wiped her brow, and tried again. Thud. This time, her back screamed in protest. She dropped the hoe. Her breath racked. The women glanced at her and shook their heads. "Ah, Adama," one of them said with pity. "The farm is not a mirror. You cannot smile your way through it." The others laughed, not cruelly but knowingly. They had warned her years ago. Adama picked up the hoe again, pride pushing her forward, but with each strike, her body betrayed her. Her palms tore, her knees weakened, and sweat poured down her face, washing away the little powder she had applied that morning. Within an hour, she had collapsed under a shade of tree, gasping for air. Her once manicured nails were caked with dirt. Her wrapper clung to her like a wet rag. Her hair, once her crown, now frizzed under the harsh sun. The other women continued working. They had children to feed, husbands to support, lives to build. They had no time to nurse a woman who once mocked their sweats. When the women finished and carried baskets of harvested cassava on their heads, Adama could not even lift hers. She staggered home empty-handed, her shame heavier than any load. That night, her parents shared the last pieces of dried yam between themselves, leaving Adama to chew bitter kola just to silence her hunger. As she lay down in the dark, her blistered hands throbbing, tears spilled freely. She realized the cruel truth. Beauty, her only weapon, had abandoned her. And without skill, without strength, without wisdom, she was nothing but a shadow of the girl she once was. The nights became Adama's greatest torments. When the village fell silent, when the last pounding of pesos ceased and even the crickets sang softly in the grass, she would lie awake staring into darkness. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but it was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. Her mind became a mirror, replaying the past in sharp, merciless detail. She saw herself at 16, lazing about and laughing at the stream, as she insulted the maidens who had married what she tagged poor men. She saw herself at 18, painting her lips red, declaring proudly to her friends, "Work? I'm too beautiful. That is my job. Men will take care of me." She saw herself at 20, turning Obinna away with cruel words, calling him a yam boy. She saw herself at 21, sneering at Chike's gifts of bushmeat, mocking him as the hunter who smells of smoke. She saw her miserable self at 28 in Okafor's house. Every sin burned her like fire. Her parents' warning echoed in her ears louder now than they had ever been when spoken. A bird that refuses to fly will one day roast in a hunter's pot. He who depends only on beauty drinks water with an empty calabash. She had laughed then, now she cried. She was 40 and lonely. One night, after hours of tossing, she slipped quietly out of her father's hut and walked to the big Iroko tree at the center of the village. The moon hung low, washing the compound in silver light. Adama sank to the ground, laid her back against the tree. The memories returned. This was the same tree under which Shike had once carved her name, swearing eternal love. She traced the faded marks with her finger, her chest tightening. How foolish she had been to think love was beneath her, that wealth could come simply because of her beauty. A dog barked in the distance and she covered her face with her hands. What have I done with my life? She cried into the night. What have I gained? No voice answered. Only the wind rustled the leaves above. Her mates, Those she once mocked now walked past her with babies strapped to their backs. They exchanged recipes, shared stories of their husband, and gossiped cheerfully. Adama had nothing to share. No children's name to call, no husband's arm to lean on. Only an empty heart, two weary parents, and fading beauty that could no longer buy her a single calabash of garri. Years rolled into years, and Adama's beauty, once the pride of her youth, faded like the paint on an old calabash left too long in the rain. Her skin, once glowing like palm oil under the sun, became rough and wrinkled. Her hair, once thick and black, grew thin and grey. Her waist, once the envy of maidens, thickened like the trunk of a tree. Her laughter, once bright as bells, grew hollow with age. The girl who once mocked the farm now sat at its edges, begging for scraps from the very women she once despised. The girl who once sneered at suitors now sat alone in her late parents' compound, watching children who were not hers run past with joyous screams. And the saddest of it all, she grew old without love, without children, and without wealth. Her parents had passed into the land of the ancestors, and Adama was left alone, her heart echoing with silence. Neighbors whispered about her in pity. Once, she was a jewel of Ubaka. Today, she's only a shadow of her former self. And so, Adama's story became a lesson. At moonlight gatherings, when children sat cross-legged in the dust and the flames of the fire cracked under the night sky, the elders would raise their voices and say, "Children, listen well. Once there was a maiden named Adama. She was the most beautiful girl our eyes had ever seen. But she believed her beauty was enough to feed her belly, enough to build her future. She rejected love, mocked work, and trusted in her looks alone. And when her beauty faded, so did her fortune. She was left with nothing." Then the elder would pause, spit into the fire, and add a proverb. Beauty is like a borrowed wrapper. When the true owner comes for it, you will be left naked. And the children would gasp, their eyes wide, whispering among themselves. The maidens especially would nod, remembering to balance beauty with hard work, with wisdom, and with kindness. And after the story, the children will burst into a song as they danced under the moonlight.
Adama fine like yam. But yam we no get soup, no dey sweet. Adama skin like corn. But yam we no get pot, skin like all. Adama fine like yam. She say I no go walk, I too fine. Adama skin like corn. Now she dey beg what I know they about. Adama fine like yam. Obina don't marry, chike don't go. Adama skin on gold. Adama they lonely, mirror they laugh am. Adama fine like yam. Beauty we no get sense.
Na basket of water.
Beauty we no get work.
Na broom without handle.
Adama fine.
Adama sweet, but hunger finish am for Papa house. Adama fine like yam. Adama fine like yam.
Adama fine.
Adama sweet, but hunger finish am for Papa house.
And so, dearest listeners, Adama lived out her days quietly. Her name carried more as a warning than as a praise. When she finally joined her ancestors, no husband's tears fell on her grave. No children called her mother. No grandchildren poured libation in her honor. Only silence. But her story lived on, echoing through the village as a timeless truth. Relying only on beauty is like fetching water with a basket. True value comes from hard work, character, and wisdom, not fading looks. Hey besties, we've come to the end of this amazing story, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. I would love you to share your thoughts in the comment section. And if you enjoy our stories and you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please do not skip this video without hitting on the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so that you get notified whenever we post new stories. Thank you so much for all your love and support. It means so much to me. Right now, I'll have to go and see you in the next